This is your host, Pete Moore, and I am pleased and humbled to announce the launch of my one and only book, Time to Win Again. 52 takeaways from playing and watching team sports to ensure your business success. Those of you who know me personally, and anyone who listens to Halo Talks for any length of time, know that I am an avid sports fan and a big believer in the value of team sports. What I've seen over the past 25 years helping businesses grow, raising capital, being an entrepreneur myself, and coaching and mentoring executives in the sector, it's the lessons learned on the field perfectly apply to business. Entrepreneurs, executives, managers, you name it. Every company that's a strong company has got a good team. It's a quick read. There's awesome illustrations in there from our good friend Mark at Cruelty Free Cartoons. If you go to integritysq.com, enter your email address, and we will send you information on the book and the Entrepreneur's Survival Kit as well. Be great. Take names. Go Halo. This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC, on location, Dallas, Texas. IHRSA 2021, finally in person. I have the pleasure of having Liz Clark join me on Halo Talks, welcoming her with open arms to the industry. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Pete. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So first off, I was in Montana 2 days ago, and I had a great time. So why don't you talk about your background? And I know you do a little bit of hunting and you do a little bit of outdoor wilderness.
Yeah, man. Well, it's God's country out there. And I'll tell you, I was really blessed to have grown up out there. My family moved out when I was, like 8 or 9. And then I was out there until I was 15 or 16. So real, formidable years. And came from a very active family. And so, when I think I shot my first deer when I was 12 or 13, and then, active, fishing all the time. And then just everything about what makes Montana freaking amazing is the skiing and the hiking and, lived on a lake. And so I had a canoe and, just an awesome, awesome place to grow up. And my brother is still out there. So I actually, my husband's the one who encouraged me last year. He said, you should go spend some time with your brother out in Montana. And I'm like, well, all my brother does is hunt. So if I'm going to spend any time with him, I probably have to go on a hunting trip. And so that's essentially what happened. I put in for this tag. It's called a coming home to hunt tag. And I didn't know if I'd get it.
Okay.
And I got it. And I was like, oh, man, now I got to go on this trip. And I hadn't shot a gun in 25 years. It was I'm a city kid now. I live in Washington, D.C., and went out and, spent 10 days out there and ended up, it's a crazy story, but at the end of the day, shot a monster bull elk and record-breaking animal.
Wow.
Yeah, and now me and my family have been eating elk meat, every meal of the day for a year.
So I was playing golf out in Whitefish and Kalispell, so I wasn't as I had a different set of weapons, which were some irons.
Yeah, I know. Well, what course do you play? I love golf.
We were in Kalispell. I got to get the names. There was one in Whitefish, and then we went down to one in Kalispell. So
yeah,
it was nice to get out there.
It's beautiful for 2 months, and then
Amazing.
Than that, yeah.
We came in, and the trees were changing colors, and it was just wow.
Yeah,
I understand why people live here.
Yep.
So, well, welcome to the industry. So, your background is kind of unique. I did some research. You said you started out in sports management. So obviously, there's a big part of public speaking and being present, in the association world and in public policy. Yep. So maybe talk us through how the progression was from what your initial passion was and how you've kind of morphed it and now to where you are today.
Yeah, you bet. So, I've been an athlete my whole life. I was a 3 varsity sport athlete in high school, and then in college, I was on the crew team. And so, my undergrad was in sports, broadcasting, radio and television sports broadcasting. So I loved it because I've just been very interested in it my whole life. And then as I sort of ended college, I was getting job offers in cities that I was not wild about. And I was like, I don't know that I really want to go live in Toledo. Because you got to work your way up in these markets. You don't just start on ESPN. And so I actually just came to Washington, D.C. I had a bunch of friends there and got into the association world. It was really weird. And with that, obviously, came a lot of public speaking, but also a total exposure into the policy world and what associations do. And then I've just been on this trajectory with associations my entire time. And this is now my fourth one. So it's been a pretty cool spot to land. And always had an interest in public policy, but now at the helm and being at an association that needs to pivot to focus more on policy, it's a pretty cool time to be here.
Yeah. So, being part of the candy industry, obviously a lot different dynamics than the fitness industry. But what are some of the, lessons learned that, hey, look, whatever the product or whatever the industry is, like there's a certain set of facts or rules that you have to abide by in order to get policies, proliferated in your favor.
Yeah, so the industries themselves, actually, it's really interesting. I've only been on the job 2 months now, but I've seen a lot of comparisons, a lot of small businesses, a lot of innovative thinkers, and that's what happens in candy too. The candy comes up with 5,000 or 6,000 new SKUs of candy every year. Mm-hmm. So it's really creative people that pull their bootstraps up and put their personal finances on the line, to just very similar to this industry. So that said, as you look at advocating for policy and what that makes, I really am a trained advocate. And so what you can do with that is you can really advocate for anything. Right. For me, it was important to advocate for something I really believe in. And that's what makes this industry so amazing. And there's ways, about advocacy that are important, but you got to have data, you got to have the stats, you've got to have, a good team around you, you've got to have relationships with Congress, relationships with communicators, and, you kind of package all that up, and then that's your advocacy program.
Right. So when you take a look at IHRSA, and I think IHRSA got some undue heat when the pandemic hit because collectively we've funded IHRSA to basically create a trade show and create some marketing materials, which have been very helpful, and some data, high-level data that's helped guys like us bring private equity and venture capital into the space because we could show that there's third-party data and that this industry's got the wind at its sails and so on and so forth. So when the pandemic hit, it's like, oh, IHRSA's not doing this. Like, well, they don't have money to do. Like, you didn't give them any money, so why can you can't blame them for this.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't even the money. It was frankly just the mission and the structure of what we were doing. You're right. I mean, we were working on a trade show. We had publications, but we were never a advocacy-focused organization. We did do a lot of advocacy at the state level, but nothing federally. We just weren't structured that way. That wasn't the mission of the board. But obviously, over time, that became very critical, which was why they wanted a very deliberate shift into focusing on that today. So you're right. We weren't prepared. We weren't ready at the time, and we needed to be when this whole thing went down. I mean, nobody saw a pandemic coming or what that was going to mean about like arguing on who's essential and whatnot. But we definitely were, behind when all that came to be. And so we found ourselves here now, and that's why it's a new day.
Yeah. So when you take a look at other industries, and I listen to this podcast, I listen to a lot of podcasts. There's a podcast called Gangster Capitalism, and it's a multi-series multi-episodes on the National Rifle Association. And their average dues contribution is $40. And they have, the largest political action committee funds. And then I looked at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and they have a $17.5 million annual
My alma
budget.
mater.
Yeah, I know you work there. So when you take a look at an industry like this, and you say, all right, we've got some really big players. We've got some public companies now. We've got multi-billion-dollar software companies. How does all this kind of come together and everyone say, all right, if I'm Planet Fitness, I'm Orange Theory, I'm Lifetime, like IHRSA or whatever the new name comes up with, like they are my voice. Like let's pool all this capital and all this influence because whatever they want, we want.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like there's almost like, hey, we got this, IHRSA's been covering like the multi-unit operators and we got some big players here and there. And there's a couple of groups that are saying like, I'm going to do my own thing. So I'm assuming one of your initiatives is say like, look, I'm not going to provide this for everyone. So how do you think about that? And what are some of the steps that you think need to be taken or that you're planning to take?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we got to figure out what is our value proposition to these people. Like, what is going to make people show up and write checks and be that dues checks or even personal checks? And so one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is reevaluating our value for membership And what do you get for that? We know that we've lost a lot of members because we weren't focused on advocacy. So to me, every association that I have been a part of, the value has been advocacy. And then it helps to have a trade show and it helps to have a publication, but that is not the focus of what the value is that you're providing to folks. And so for me, that's what we're going to be doing. And then as we go out and recruit new members to come in the tent that we need for our very important voice and advocacy from a dues perspective is one thing, but then establishing or reestablishing, I should say, our PAC is critical. And so happy to talk more about that, but it's, the PAC is the money that goes directly to legislators that funds their campaigns. It's personal money, so it's hard to raise those dollars. But with an industry our size, we should have a very legitimate PAC and be able to be supporting legislators throughout Congress.
Sure. So when you take a look at the PAC, and I'm not as skilled on how this works, but is that something that needs to be a completely separate entity? Does that somehow, it has to kind of work in parallel or?
Yeah, it's a separate fund that's run by the organization. So IHRSA would oversee it, but it's its own bank account. And what it is personal dollars. So it is not corporate money. It is Liz Clark giving Liz Clark's money to the PAC. And
so I can't give as like Integrity Square can't make a contribution to a PAC.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a little caveat if depending on if you are organized as a partnership. I'm learning about that, but it's a strong weird caveat. It's for the most part it's just personal dollars, and so. But anybody in your family can give, any of your employees can give, and so it takes a while. And this is one of the things I did at Candy, actually very similar. That when I got to the Candy Association, we had $30,000 in our PAC. Today, the IHRSA PAC has $30,000 in it, and by the time I left, we were somewhere around $750 a cycle, which is enough to support, a pretty strong contingent in Congress. Mm-hmm. So. And it's one of the stools of advocacy, or one of the legs of the stools of advocacy that I say, so you got to have a strong PAC, but then it's also, you need to be doing actual lobbying and talking to members of Congress face to face. And then it's enlisting your army, your soldiers out in the real world to go and talk to their members of Congress and their local reps and make sure that they're connecting all those dots, that they are the job creators and, the businesses that are driving growth in economies and linking all that together.
I want to take a minute and tell our audience about two awesome workout recovery products I've been using for the last 18 months from higherdose.com, leader in infrared technology for athletes like all of us are. We're an investor in the company. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because it works. Got an infrared sauna blanket. I hop in there. I'll listen to some podcasts, burn 800 calories, get a mad detox, and a PEMF, which is a pulsed electromagnetic field crystal mat that I lay on and I recalibrate my cells to the normalized level of the earth. If you got somebody you like and you're looking for a pretty awesome gift, they will love it. You can use this code HALO75, get $75 off, and you will not be disappointed. Higherdose.com, promo code HALO75. And now let's get back to our regularly scheduled program.
So when you take a look at some of the initiatives that IHRSA has had and the GYMS Act, how important is the name of the act when you go and talk to these congressmen or congresswomen?
It sounds cheesy, but it is important. They love it. These members, and I know that we get hung up a little bit because obviously we're more than just gyms, right? We are lifestyle. We're so much, but members of Congress and staffers love acronyms, and so they really wanted to push for that, and if these are the champions on the Hill that are going to be pushing our legislation and getting other members of Congress on it, it's a small little nuanced thing, but it does matter.
So is a gym, like when I think about a gym, I think about my high school gymnasium, which has a lot of deferred CapEx.
Yeah.
So would it be beneficial if it was called like the Stay Healthy or Get Healthy or preemptive, or came up with some kind of acronym, or you think the GYMS Act is okay?
I think it's okay for now. And I mean, but this is one narrow piece of legislation for one moment in time. I think, as we progress in time and continue to do more in the advocacy space, there's going to be more proactive efforts. And there probably are some programs that we could, be looking at from a broader basis to get their support.
Got it. So when you were evaluating whether to take this job opportunity, what are some of the things that you looked at to say, okay, this is set up where I know how to fix it, or there are some things that this is going to be a long putt for a long period of time?
Yeah. Listen, the thing that drew me to it was obviously the importance of the industry, but the people. And so as I got in every round of my interview process, I met more and more people who were more and more committed to this industry. So I got inspired by that. Mm-hmm. I also, with every round, peeled back another layer of the onion and saw something else that needs to be fixed. And so I was very intentionally chosen for this position to pivot the organization to focus on advocacy and communication. So that is the first thing that we're doing out of the gate. It's why I had our advocacy folks come to Washington, D.C., my second week on the job. Mm-hmm. And so that's right now, focus number one, but there are 10 other things beyond it that we need to reevaluate and think about. What's the value to our international members? What is our role going to be on international advocacy? I mean, it's hard enough to advocate domestically in one country, let alone think you're going to be effective in all of them. But, how can we be engaging more with the WHO and other groups like that? I think are really important. So we got to look at that. Yeah, we got to look at the universe of potential members out there. Obviously, with 22% of gyms closing, in the last 20 months of COVID, the pie, in one sense, is smaller, but it's still an amazing opportunity to be getting other people in the tent. But you need to, again, go back to what we said earlier. What's the value proposition to them? Mm-hmm. And then what's the home that's going to make them feel like they want to be a part of this? And so it's why I think our name is exclusive versus inclusive. And it's why I think we need to hit pause on it and think about creating the brand that we want to be, and that's going to allow more people in the tent in the future.
Yeah. I mean, with the proliferation of, connected fitness, and then also just the amount of venture capital dollars that have been put towards those pieces of equipment and subscriber bases, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in some of these venture meetings. They're like, hey, look, there's $35 billion worth of health club membership recurring revenue, and just go after it. Try and get as much as you can before these people reopen. Yeah. Right? So that was probably part of it was, venture capital firms they're trying to create these awesome companies. They're also trying to be disruptive and, monopolization of a market. But I kind of see all those companies in the near term potentially thinking about a health club as like a showroom for their equipment, and they could distribute out of there, and you could actually go in and you could try the equipment out. So I would hope that they become collaborators and actually, maybe turn the health club operators into distributors. Yeah. Because that'd be interesting. And then also, you've got an opportunity now to bring in, the Pelotons and the iFit and the Nautilus, which are all, $1 billion plus companies. So I do agree with you that it has been like a bricks and mortar kind of, party going on, and didn't really have the reach of like everyone comes out of the member, like who's our member at the club level and what do they care about? Right. And then then there's layers of like who cares about that from an economic standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting concept and definitely a wave of the future. And it's why, we're talking about that. How do we do more with our technology partners, and what does that mean for helping IHRSA and helping them, and it's a partnership. And so we've got, even just at this show here in Dallas, fabulous partners that are here today, and I'm prioritizing meeting with all of them because it's important that they're part of the conversation. In fact, just yesterday I had a board meeting, and one of the things I suggested is I think we need to create a seat on our board for these member partners. They're critical to us.
One of the most interesting things, and I was talking about with you before we turn the mic on, most of the industry does all their billing with third-party billing companies. So it's almost like an automatic lockbox, if you will. And then the franchisors in this industry, they take, like Planet Fitness, they'll take their 6% directly from ABC. They won't go and send an invoice to a Planet Fitness franchisee and hope that they pay their royalty fees. So as we think about industry association fees, or maybe even tapping into the members to be a part of the contribution process, I feel like the technology and like the billing infrastructure is almost like it couldn't be better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and they've been great partners to us, and we've started to have those conversations, and they're going great. You mentioned ABC, fabulous partner to us. Daxco, fabulous partner to us. So, I mean, and it's not a huge universe of companies that do that.
Exactly,
And so,
it's like top 5.
Right, and the one so far, the ones that we're talking to believe so much in us and want us to succeed so badly that they're totally amenable to this concept.
Yeah. So as you kind of lay out, you've done this several times now in different associations. So you lay out, your first 100 days and then kind of think methodically about it. What are some of the things that our listeners here should be doing either locally or supporting, what you want done in this first, kind of honeymoon period of like, hey, I'm here. We're going to fix it. Give me some time to do it because it doesn't happen overnight.
Yep.
But what do you want people to be able to be doing right now?
I'm on a big learning and listening tour right now. I'm trying to get to talk to everybody I can, and I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, what are your listeners' thoughts on what we can be doing better? What are we doing good? Strategic direction. So I'm getting a lot of feedback, and it's been really, really helpful as we think about where we go in the future with this organization. Obviously, from an advocacy perspective, there's stuff people could be doing right now, and that's meeting your member of Congress so that we can ensure that we are never left behind again. And you don't have to come to Washington for that. There is a local office in every congressional district in this country, and that's staffed by staffers. And so, you should be thinking about setting up meetings with those. If you are reopening, if you are opening a new facility, you should be inviting your member of Congress. You should be inviting your mayor. You should be inviting your chamber of commerce, getting, all the airplay together that you possibly can. And it's a good story to tell. Members of Congress want to come and do that. They want to show that they are representing thriving communities. So as we are reopening, I think it's an important part of the story that we need to be having them at the table.
Is there when everyone talks about PACs and they talk about money raised and money allocated, is there a way for us to kind of create like a voting syndicate?
Explain more. What do you mean?
Everyone talks about, we're going to put X number of dollars behind this congressperson. Well, I've got 6,000 people in my health club. Obviously I'm not going to put up ads to say like, vote for this representative, but I'm going to tell you this representative supports the GYMS Act or supports the Healthy Living Act, and this one doesn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like not only do we need to have dollars, but there's actually votes associated with that. And I wonder if that's like a pressure point to kind of say, hey, look, we got an industry, we got 60 million members, and we're going to put out a list to every one of our members, and they're going to put it on their bulletin board or on one of their big screen TVs that says, these are the members in this district that support what we're doing. Yeah. Here's the one that don't.
Yeah.
Has anyone done that yet?
Not that I know of, but I love that. Yeah, I love that idea.
Let's do that. We'll do it in big font, like 72 font.
I love it.
Times New Roman, bold.
Yes.
Done.
Strong.
Okay, let's do that first.
I'm in.
And so let's really do that, because I feel like the votes are just as important as the money, or like we're delivering you a certain amount of votes if you like you back what we're doing.
Yep.
And then just from a standpoint of the advocacy, like we've got advocacy, we want to be an essential business like everyone does. But how does that kind of trickle into some of the other things? Like I was thinking when we started the NHFA, hey, we got to figure out how to like get a higher flexible spending account for everyone in the industry, plus Peloton and every other group. Or maybe if you buy Nike, like that could be tax deductible as part of like anything that's in the athleisure space.
Yep.
So how far do you go? Do you go and say, okay, I'm going to protect the bricks and mortar. I'm going to get a higher flexible spending account, which is going to bring in all the connected fitness players that are dropping $2,000 on a credit card that now they can get reimbursed for tax deductible.
Yep.
Does it go to, I want more bike lanes? Does it go to like, I want more parks? I want basketball nets on the rims. How far do you go?
Yeah, I think it's as far as we want to go. I think the sky's the limit, and do we stay in that focus lane around, sports and fitness and the future there, or do we focus on other business issues that people care about, and do we get more engaged on conversations about minimum wage and, broader business issues that are also impacting our folks. There's all kinds of opportunities to weigh in on all of that. And that's why it's critical, to have somebody like me in Washington, D.C., where you can engage in coalitions on that. You don't have to lead on those issues, but if they're important to us, you got to be at the table and be on the letter.
Sure.
Yeah.
So at this show, obviously you're going to be meeting with a lot of people, and we're gonna close here. But do you have any good business quotes or quotes that you live by that says, "Oh, that's a Liz Clark"?
Yeah. Okay. So I got two business quotes that I'll share, I guess. So one of them is, it says, "If you're not in politics, you're not in business." Or you can do the inverse of it too. Like, if you're in politics, you're in business, right? And then the other one is that if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. So those are my business and advocacy quotes. Yep.
All right. So the fitness industry is officially at the table. Liz will be our ambassador. We are looking for a lot of good change. We're going to be part of that change agent, and hopefully we could be as helpful as possible and come back here next year and talk about all the wins.
Thanks. I'd love to. Thanks for having me today, and thanks for all your help and your support. And just it's a brighter day ahead. So Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming on.